Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Today, we'll be doing a presentation on leveraging your online community and how to manage, monitor, and measure your brand online. I'm Susan Muirhead. I'm the Associate Director of the Brand Hub. We are sponsoring this event in partnership with the Champaign Public Library, the Urbana Free Library, and with Lodgic Everyday Community, who's hosting us physically. So thank you to all of our partners. I guess we can go ahead and get started. Marissa Peacock will be presenting today. She's wonderful. She's a lecturer in the Department of Advertising, as well as being the founder and chief strategist at Peacock Marketing. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm so glad to see everyone. I'm here, everyone. So welcome and happy Thursday. So we're sort of going to build off of my last presentation, which talked about really getting to understand your audience and who they are and how they like to engage. And so we're going to talk more about your community of online fans and followers. And so, which really brings up the question, what is community management? And how is it different than social media management, right? So we're not throwing you a new skill, we're just sort of adding another layer to your social media management. So when we talk about community management, it's really about the relationships that your brand is able to leverage and the interactions with your community in public online spaces. And those public online spaces are probably social media channels. And again, the idea is that social media is social. So just as you would go to an in-person community event in public, you wouldn't just stand in the corner, right? You would talk to people and have conversations and, add to the people in your community, get to know them, leverage their connections, and be personable. And so community management in the online space is just sort of an extension of that and sort of be able to adapt those in-person, in real life experiences that we demonstrate, on a regular basis, just in the online space. And so when we talk about community, we're talking about the people who are already engaging with you, your current customers, fans, your target audiences, those that you want to engage. And then the people who are indirectly engaging with you online. So again, one, we're doing very targeted marketing. We might be doing emails. We might do being active on social media. But then there are the people, the extension of your audience. These are the people that your audience are hopefully talking to, sort of that word of mouth, people who are discovering you through other means that may lead them to your social media. So to answer the burning question, what is the distinction between community management and social media management? So if we think about social media management, that is the production and distribution of social content to communicate with your current customers, with new customers, and your existing ones. Community management is what happens after that and beyond that social distribution. So it's sort of a multifaceted term that we give to that includes customer service, social listening. You've probably heard the word social listening at some point, and just active engagement, being an active member in the discussions that are happening. So social media is the actual publishing and communication, but then the community management is sort of the after. It's it's not that you've given the information and now you're engaging with that person about that information. So again, going back to my in-person networking metaphor, you've given your business card to someone or you've told them your elevator pitch, and now they have questions. And so good community managers stay and engage and answer those questions, and you sort of give a more holistic picture of your brand or your business. But you'd be surprised how much community management is sort of this afterthought, and it's akin to, giving your elevator pitch and then just walking away, right? So the community management piece is, as important as the social media piece, but it's a little less structured. So I think that it becomes a little bit more intimidating or a little bit harder to sort of conceptualize for a lot of businesses. So this just is a chart that kind of further elaborates the skills and attributes needed for community management versus social media management. So again, this might be helpful if you are thinking about, hiring for a community manager who would assist the social media manager, or if you're trying to combine these positions together, or just trying to figure out who in your organization might be best suited to play an active role in that community management. So the skills are essentially, in alignment. But when we think about the attributes, a community manager is someone who is a people person. They like to have those conversations. They are, empathetic in their responses. They're enthusiastic about their responses. That's the person that you want to be communicating after, the posts have been made. The attributes of a social media manager are also conversational, but they're there to get information from the audience, not necessarily to give the information back. So they're very complementary to each other, and obviously you can combine these two positions into one, but sometimes it can be helpful to have a community manager who's sort of a little bit separate from social media so that they can really have the freedom to go fully into that role. And if you're interested more in community management, the Community Roundtable is an excellent resource. They do a lot of facilitation around community management at all levels in organizations. So I encourage you to check them out. And they do an annual survey of sort of, the trends in community management. So I definitely recommend you check that resource out as well. So when we talk about community management, there are these four elements: the monitoring, the engaging, the moderating, and the measuring. And this really ensures that you're taking a very holistic view of your community. It's not a monolith. There are different needs. Every community is going to be different. And you can't really begin to understand your community until you start actively listening and seeing what they're saying, and what are the questions, and what are their frustrations, what are they passionate about. And then you can sort of figure out how you can start engaging them to provide that information in a way that's helpful, that's meaningful, that adds value. And the moderation, you as a community manager, and we'll kind of talk more in depth about each one of these, but the moderation of a community is, again, that it's, when you have a panel of guests, is making sure that everyone is sort of getting, the same time to talk about their problems. You're not letting just one person sort of dominate the conversation, and you're sort of keeping everyone sort of happy and satiated in that community. So a lot of times the community manager, when a community is really run well, they're taking sort of a backseat approach to it and just sort of keeping everyone focused and on track. And then ultimately it's measuring. You want to know, what are the benefits of this community? You might be putting a lot of time and energy into managing it. We want to make sure that we're getting the right things out of it, and so that we can adapt and refine as necessary. So when we talk about monitoring, it's this idea that we're always listening, always be listening. And it really is something that has to happen at the cultural level within an organization. And creating this listening culture, which means that you kind of have maybe putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. We're going to see what people are saying about us. And maybe it's good, maybe it's, a little uncomfortable to hear. But until we really understand where they're having these conversations and what their questions are, we really can't begin to understand our community. And so you can do this in a variety of ways. We can set up Google alerts, right? So anytime that, our brand or our CEO or whoever is mentioned in the press or on a blog, we'll get an alert. We can do this on social media too. We can set up notifications. We can follow, we can set up searches on, in Twitter or Facebook or Pinterest or YouTube or wherever to sort of see where those organic conversations are taking place. And a lot of times it's not a very obvious mention, right? If you sell chairs, right? If you go to Twitter and you just type in the words best office chair, you will see that there are hundreds of conversations taking place where people are just shouting into their community saying, hey, I need a new office chair. What's the best one? Give me recommendations. And people will start mentioning brands. They're not tagging them in their conversation. They're not doing this because they want something from the brand. They're sharing information. So if you know that your brand is coming up either as a positive reference or in a negative voice, it's an opportunity for you to sort of insert yourself subtly into those conversations and say, hey, wow, thanks so much for recommending us. We love our products too. And we have a new chair that's coming out. Check it out. Or, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, you've had issues with our chairs before. How can we help? Right? So you are infusing yourself into that community to try to help people and to thank them and maybe, create those little surprise and delight moments. And so again, it's not that you're trying to take over the conversation. You're just trying to understand their perspectives so that maybe you can convince them to give you another try, or you can expand, their knowledge about the product or the issue at hand. Which leads us to, so once you've done that monitoring, maybe you've collected a lot of great insights. Hey, people on Pinterest love us. People on Twitter, not so much. Okay, how can we help to balance those? What's our strategy to try to engage them so that we can reward them for speaking kindly about us? And then we can also offer information that might counter and offer different perspectives. Every comment on social media is a digital footprint, right? Someone cared enough to make an effort to talk about you. And most times our expectations as consumers are so low that we're just putting it out there because, we're frustrated or, we had such a great moment that we just want someone to notice. And so as a brand, we have a great opportunity to say, hey, thanks so much. Oh my God, that's amazing. We're so glad that you like us too. Or, wow, that wasn't the experience we wanted you to have. How can we help? And so again, your comments are also leaving a digital footprint, so that you're not just letting anything just kind of hang out there, for other people to co-opt, on your behalf. And the idea of conversations is that they're a living, breathing thing. They're meant to, be fed and watered and, so that they can grow over time, not just, just be left like, oh, that was a great conversation, moving on. These conversations matter. And they can be the difference between someone saying, wow, I had this great interaction with this brand. I'm totally going to recommend them, or I'm going to take another look at them, versus this brand, they were all in it for themselves and they only wanted to talk about themselves and they didn't really care about me. So again, those conversations need to be something that, you're taking care of, that you're cultivating over time, because those relationships are going to matter. From a purely selfish point of view, any engagement is good engagement as far as algorithms are concerned. So even if you have a slew of comments that are negative, your engagement rate is going to be pretty good because of that. So joke's on them, haha. But at the same time, you want to contribute to that engagement as well. So the more that you actively reply to all comments, the better amplification those posts are going to have in the algorithmic social world. So you're actively feeding it, which is going to make it so that other people see that. And what other people are going to see is, wow, this brand is responding to all these comments. That's great. Again, or they're liking them, or they're paying attention. And what that indicates to the consumer is this brand is actively engaging with their audience. They're taking the time to listen. That makes customers feel heard. We like it when we feel seen. We like it when we feel heard especially by corporate entities, right? Who are often very dismissive of us. So it makes a big impact. Even the smallest engagement can have a really big impact. And it allows you sort of surprise and delight people. Remember, people don't expect a response. They have such a low expectation of businesses on social media that by even just saying, wow, how can we help you? Do you want let's take this offline. We'll have a customer service representative reach out to you, or, tell us your issue and we'll fix it right now. just by, you might be thinking you're having a one-on-one conversation, but the amplification is that other people are going to see that and say, oh, wow, oh, this company really cares. They're there to solve problems for their customers, or they really do appreciate when customers take the opportunity to share their stories. So what might start off as sort of a one-on-one interaction can have the opportunity and possibility to sort of expand beyond just those two people. So best practices for sparking and spurring conversations include giving people information, but not initially, right? We're people talking to people. It's that human to human interaction. It's not business to consumer. It's not business to business. It's human to human. And as a result, we want to speak like humans do, which is to say, wow, okay, tell me more about this. How did this affect you? What's going on? What made you come to this assumption or impacted that experience? And then you can provide useful resources. But if you come in saying, well, go to our website or read our FAQs, it's kind of off-putting, right? That's not how humans interact. And so it's this 80-20 rule, 80% value, 20% information. And making sure that you're listening to them, that you're not making assumptions about what they need. Sometimes they're just there to talk. And they don't really have ulterior motives. And sometimes maybe they are trying to fish for that promotion or whatnot, and that's okay too. But giving people the time to sort of engage in that conversation before you assume what they need is to go to the FAQs or read a product review or watch a video. So don't assume what they need right away. Take the time to sort of add more value to that conversation. Which also means you using your best judgment. Sometimes we know that people are in it just to start a fight, right? Or just to get attention. Don't feed them, right? Don't start a conversation you can't ever end. And that isn't to say that you ignore them. It's just that maybe you give them more of that company line. Oh my God, thank you so much for, we appreciate you saying that. Oh, you definitely raised a really interesting point. We'll go back to our product developers and let them know, that there's an issue. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us, right? Don't try to say, well, that's not true. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. How dare you say that? Where did you get your information from? Right? You're just asking for a thread that's going to go on for days. So using your best judgment and sort of knowing which conversations are worth your time and energy and which are just sort of there existing to, flame you. Do they still call it flaming? I don't know. Flame wars. And then when you are putting together all of your channels and sort of doing maintenance on the bios and spaces where you could update links, making sure that you are being effective and consistent in that, so that you can say, oh, go check out the link in our bio, or check out our website when it's appropriate. But having that information be updated and very clear and consistent across channels means that there's less room for misinformation, miscommunication, right? And again, this seems very obvious sometimes to say this, but it's one of the things that most companies, they fail to kind of keep. They're one person, they describe themselves differently on LinkedIn than they do on Facebook, than they do on Instagram. And maybe the logo is consistent, but that's where it ends. And it can create sort of this, well, they say they do this on this channel and they do this on the other channel. What is true? So making sure that you're being very consistent in that messaging can helpfully kind of stave off, the people there who are there to vent their frustrations and nothing more. And so the other thing that you should be keeping consistent is your personality and that brand persona. Because this is another great opportunity for misinformation or just a disconnect in your brand. So if you are a very personable, happy, cheery brand, let's make sure that we keep that consistent across our community management and our conversations that we're having. If you are a very serious brand and and you take professionalism very seriously, make sure we're maintaining that. Because, and again, this is very similar to what we do. And I use this example with my students. Who you are doesn't change. You're an amazing person, right? But the way that you're going to project yourself is going to be a little bit different depending on who you're talking to. So if Chancellor Jones of the university comes into the classroom, you're still amazing, but you're going to talk to him a little bit differently than if it's me walking into the room. You're going to, you're still amazing, but you're going to change your tone a little bit with me. You're maybe a little bit more conversational, a little bit more personable. We all do this. This is normal human behavior. So we need to make sure that that translates into conversations that we're having online. So again, paying close attention to the surnames and that, or the titles that people refer to themselves as, being respectful for them, personalizing it, using their first names or titles to address someone. Again, kind of, it's still keeping with your own brand persona, but it's shifting depending upon the platforms that you're on, so that you can be respectful, that you can sort of, maintain that air of respectability. Encourage your happy customers to take the next step. Yes, thank them. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for your experience and that you're sharing your story. Do you have a photo you can share? Or, hey, take a photo, of you enjoying this great product and tag us, right? Create an extension that's also, one, going to give the customer something to do, something meaningful that they can contribute, but it's also going to give you something that you can use in your marketing and your additional communications. We know that user-generated content creates a more authentic experience for other customers. They get to see it in action, and they trust those types of content a little bit more than our own company-generated content. And then be proactive. This is, rather than reactive. A lot of times we think of community management as, okay, we're just going to sit here and stand here until someone has a questions, and then we're going to be really helpful and, have great conversations. Don't wait. If you see that people are having a conversation around you, interject. Hey, don't mean to interrupt. We just wanted to say thank you for talking so favorably about us. Let us know if we can help you in any way. Or have you checked out our latest product? It's really, if you thought this one was great, it's even better. Or, asking probing questions, oh, I'm so sorry that you didn't have a great experience. Can you tell us a little bit more so, we can help you and prevent this from happening again. Don't wait for people to tell you what's wrong. Investigate, right? This is a community of people who are following for you for a reason, commenting for a reason, engaging for a reason. Take the initiative. And again, sometimes people are waiting for that. We see that, and we've talked about this at our previous presentation, where some people are waiting for someone else to go first. And so if you open the floor and say, hey, does anyone have any questions? We're so great that you love us, but do you have any questions for us or any recommendations for what we could be doing better? Then people will start to engage rather than, well, I didn't think you were going to take it seriously, so I didn't want to waste the time telling you what to do. So if you open up the floor, you might elicit some of those great, those great recommendations on their behalf. And it shows that you're proactive. You're just not waiting for people to tell you, you're actively seeking those answers. And so when it comes to managing your reputation online, community management is a great indicator of that. So you've hopefully monitored, you've been listening into conversations, you sort of get a sense of where people regard your product or your service. You're actively engaging with them, sparking those conversations, asking great questions. And now hopefully, they're talking amongst themselves, right? And they're sharing their experience and they're asking questions of each other. So it's a true community now. And now you can sort of take the more moderation approach to it. You're not maybe having to ask questions on a regular basis. They're giving you information, but you're there, you're listening. And so if there is a question that they don't know the answer to, or that they want a little bit more information about, you're there in the wings being like, oh, great question. So glad you asked. Here's more information about that. Or here's this great video that we just produced. Maybe you can share this with people. So again, just kind of waiting in the wings, take that moderating approach. But the other thing you should be doing is sort of monitoring your channels, getting rid of spammy comments, making sure that the bots haven't taken over at any point, making sure that comments are being reply to, even if you don't have a great answer for them. By ignoring comments because you just don't know what to say is kind of speaks louder than words, or not by saying anything, because people are going to see that. Oh, they replied to all of these comments, but that one, why was that? That's weird. So again, saying, wow, that's a really great question. I don't know how to answer this point, but we'll send it back to our team, and please follow us for more updates as they arise, but we're so glad that you commented. Thanks so much. Right? You don't have to say a lot, but you have to say enough that says, we saw it. We don't know what to do with this, but we're being transparent about it. And please keep engaging with us. One of the things that when we study this in class, students are always really surprised when we take a look at brands' community management. They see a really active social media presence, but when they look to see if they're responding to comments or just simply engaging with their community online, they're shocked that major brands are not doing this. And I think this is where smaller businesses can really leverage this, because you are essentially saying, hey, we're a small business, but we care more about you than a larger brand is. And if they can't do it, then we're stepping up and we're offering this, added value in a way that hopefully endears you to us, that creates this bigger connection with you than just a transaction. And so I definitely think that, there's no one that is capitalizing on community management. It's really up to different industries and different companies to sort of leave their mark on it. So it's not something that big brands, own, and that small, companies need to catch up to. It's really sort of an uneven playing field when it comes to community management. So there's a great way for you to kind of do it in your own way. But the most important thing is to let people know that you're listening, that you're paying attention, because that matters more than you think it does. And that is going to lead to people trusting your brand over time and regarding it favorably over time. Which leads us to measuring. So this is, again, a very important part of community management, but probably the most ambiguous, right? There's not a formula for what makes community management great, what makes community management translate into transactions and sales and loyal customers. But you want to, understand the role that your community is playing in sort of the big picture. And again, you may be only one or two people, and there's a lot of conversations and there's a lot of platforms out there to monitor. How do we make the best use of your time so that we're getting the most out of this community? So obviously conversations can be happening, at all hours of the day across all platforms. You can't be there. And so again, setting up that monitoring system lets you know when conversations are taking place, but also think about where they're most likely to take place and where those communities are more likely to sort of be the most engaging or the most prominent. Focus on those. It doesn't mean that you won't focus on the other side, conversations taking place, but you want to sort of prioritize that. So if there are Facebook groups, are there LinkedIn groups? If there are Twitter chats, taking place around your brand or industry, you might want to concentrate your efforts there first to sort of, have, the most impact there. And that means that when you are measuring it, you're giving them trackable links so that you can say, hey, when I've shared this information on Twitter, it gets a lot of traffic, or when I'm sharing this link on Facebook, it gets this amount of traffic. So you can sort of understand the actions and behaviors of your audiences. The other thing too is that sometimes these things are just going to kind of be one-off conversations. Maybe there's a trending topic, and so your product features prominently in that. And then you kind of go back to the kind of regular, light conversation. Understanding what triggered those types of one-off, conversation events is going to be really helpful for your overall metrics, right? Hey, why did we get this spike in traffic to our site? oh, there was this conversation taking place online, and we came into this conversation and shared a lot of great information. So being, that can help you track those trends over time, because again, that could be just a one-off experience, or maybe there was an event taking place that, that your product, factored into favorably. Maybe that's an event that you want to take, that you want to build into your event planning, or your social media planning. Is this something that's likely to occur? Is it seasonal? Is it based off of, another community event? So there might be indicators of why this conversation spike happened. And so you can sort of use that to sort of make sense of your overall metrics, rather than being like, I don't know why we saw a bunch of traffic to the site. So again, measuring what matters, why does this community exist, and what is its value to you, is going to help you measure it a little bit more specifically. Your community is only as good as what you put into it. So obviously, if you've cultivated your community over time, it might become bigger than you, right? And that's a way for you to take a more supporting role in it. So if I am Subaru and I know that my consumers love going hiking, and they're going to organize, these great outings in national parks to celebrate their love of their Subarus, that's happening without Subaru doing anything. But if they know they're taking place and these conversations are happening, they can send them swag, right? Oh my God, thanks so much. We love that you love your Subarus too. Here are some, biodegradable bags, or here are some water bottles to take on your hike that's branded with Subaru, right? That's a great way for communities to feel supported by a brand without feeling as if they're being infiltrated by a brand. So again, but Subaru doesn't know if these events are taking place if they're not actively listening and monitoring those conversations. But communities also need to accurately reflect the culture of your organization, and provide those meaningful experiences for your audience. So again, your community, online community might be amazing, but if they come to a real person event, you should be able to match that, right? It shouldn't just be like, oh, wow, this is a really thriving community online, but when I meet them in person, it doesn't really match up, right? We want to maintain that consistency of that culture. And that might mean that your communications staff is amazing and they are passionate and enthusiastic, but it has to be matched by the staff that's, in the store, and, all those different touch points that they may come in contact with. It has to be a company-wide initiative. Community management does not thrive when it's forced. It thrives when it is a natural extension of a brand or, a company. So you have to understand, what are you adding value to, right? Because you want to facilitate a community that, needs you in some way, right? And whether it's just to get support, or maybe, promotional discounts, friends and family, the inside scoop on things. What is that thing that you're trying to provide your members with? What's in it for them? If they're going to join your Facebook group, or or if they're going to become a part of your brand ambassadors, or, a pilot group of people who are going to test products or things like that. What is it that's in it for them? What are they getting access to that they might not if they joined another company community? So can they get, what they're getting from you somewhere else, or is it sort of more exclusive? And again, that can mean loyalty programs, that can be brand ambassador, influencer marketing opportunities, but it could also be, hey, we heard that you wanted a purple pillow. So, hey, we talked to our product developers and we developed a purple pillow. Thanks to you, thanks to this community, you have helped us find a new color for our product. And so now you've reinforced the power of community. Hey, if I contribute to these conversations and I actively ask questions and give recommendations, this brand is paying attention and they're going to use my insights. And now that pillow is going to be in my house and I'm going to tell everyone that it's purple because of my suggestion, right? And so again, it becomes this sort of word of mouth monster that reinforces the power of community. Transparency is very important. So again, being honest with why this community matters to you. Hey, we really want to know what you're thinking. We want to include more customer insights into our product development or our services. We want to meet your needs. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, over the course of the next few weeks, and we would really love your honest feedback. And then we're going to let you know what we do with this, right? You can't just leave your community hanging. You have to sort of make sure that they understand that you're doing something with this information. So be upfront. Hey, we want to connect other customers to other customers. We know that this is a product that serves many different communities, and we would love for be able to connect our customers together so that they can learn from each other. And then be honest when you're replying to questions and comments. If you don't know the answer, tell them that. There's a lot of authenticity in saying, yeah, wow, no one's ever asked that before. That's a great question. I'm going to go back to my team and we'll follow up with you, and then follow up with them. But sometimes you can disarm a lot of customers by just being honest and having some cool candor that lets them know this isn't just a robot replying to my reply. This is a real human person. That is another tack that you can take within community management when you're replying to questions, is to sort of sign your initials so people know that it's a real human person replying to their answers. They will actually probably be kinder to you because a lot of people probably assume, oh, it's some robot, some company form, replying to my request. But if you sign your initials to it, they're like, oh, it's a person. All right, maybe I won't be as rough and harsh with them as I might have been if I thought it was an anonymous person. So getting in the habit of signing your initials or maybe your first name can really give the indication to the audience that there's a person behind the scenes. So when it comes to metrics, think about what the goal of the community is and then measure that. So if it's there to promote brand awareness, hey, we've got a lot of loyal customers. We want to bring in new customers and educate more people about who we are as a company or what our services do. Then track that. Are we getting more mentions? Are people commenting more? Are we seeing more visits to our website as a result? Are we seeing more conversations taking place on social media? If it's to drive traffic or sell products, okay, then put those tracking codes in those links so you can see who is coming to those pages on your website and who is buying those products as a result. And if you're trying to build better products, ask the right questions, right? So don't just ask questions for the sake of asking questions. Ask questions that are actually meaningful to you. Hey, would you guys pay a little bit more if we used recycled materials to build our product? Or would you pay, how much would you pay for a product that did X, Y, and Z? Get those insights from them. So don't just ask, what's your favorite color, right? That's a very engaging question. People want to share that. But unless you plan to do something with that information, that's a wasted opportunity. The sooner that you can sort of set the benchmarks from your community and their engagement, the sooner you can start tracking that. Hey, when we ask these questions, it drives traffic. When we ask these questions, they share things. When we tell them to share things or retweet us or, tag a friend, they do it. Okay, that was something that wasn't happening a month ago. Now they're trusting us. They want to contribute. Okay, what can we do with this? How can we, bring that into a bigger picture? Specify the actions that you want your audience to take, right? Give them clear call to actions. Download this thing, download our mobile app, share this with your friends, watch this video. Don't just kind of give them information and expect them to know what to do with it. They, again, guide that customer through a journey. But whatever actions you want them to take, make sure it's easy and rewarding to do so. Don't give them homework. Don't make it harder for them to do something. We're not going to do it, right? It's now you've given me a chore. Thank you so much. And it's oh wow, they made that really easy for me to share or comment or leave a review or upload a video. And again, you're going to reward them by making it easy to do something. No one, customers, we love to share, but only if it's easy for us to do it. If it's like a 15-part, tutorial on how to upload a video to the website, nope, shutting it down, deal breaker. So again, make sure that you're giving them things that are easy for them to complete, so they don't kind of have that freak out moment where they're like, why are they making it so hard for me to do this? Create meaningful conversations by asking questions. As we've learned in our previous session, don't pressure them if they're not ready. They might just not be that audience, and that's okay. Now we kind of have to go back and say, okay, well, why aren't they engaging? Are they just introverted people who are there to consume information? All right, let them consume information. Or are there trust issues? Is there something that they're sort of holding back? Okay, if we think that they don't yet trust us, what type of information can we be giving them that can make us trust? Okay, let's have, let them do an Ask Me Anything with the CEO, or let's do a Facebook Live where they get to meet the people behind the scenes. You have to make yourself vulnerable in order for them to feel more comfortable. And again, that kind of sets the tone of your company culture. If you're not comfortable doing that, you really have no shape to demand it from them, right? So if you're not willing to give a little bit, they're never going to get comfortable to give you information. So again, we kind of need to examine it, but there's a lot of great content that you could be using to sort of, give them that information. Okay, yeah, we know that people don't want to share their most intimate moments with a corporation or a brand, but but we're going to share ours with you, right? And we're going to tell you the story of our brand and why this is so important for us. So again, giving them those moments where they kind of connect and go, oh, okay, this company's different. They really do care about this, or they really are invested in the product and the experience. So those moments can help shape a community into a more trusting, authentic, voice of your audience. And then finally, it comes down to culture. Community management is what you make out of it, and it has to reflect your company culture. So if you're not there yet to share a lot of these, emotional details with your audience, well, then maybe we're just there to monitor the conversation and interject when we can. But the community style has to be authentic, because they'll call you out on it, right? Wow, everyone in this community is really supportive, and when I interact with people online from your company, they're amazing. But when I call you on the phone or I visit you in the store, something's off, right? People are savvy, they're going to pay attention to that. So again, it has to be something that is integral to the company at its core and the people that work there. Because again, if you force it, it's not going to work. People don't want to be forced to be in a community. They want to find it on their own. And again, if you're asking members to be engaging and personable, your company, your staff, your people need to be engaging and personable as well. And this is where in community management, and especially in customer service, we see that the people themselves within the organization kind of assume a persona of their own. And this is a very healthy thing to do, because working in social media management, working in community management is a very stressful, high pressure environment, and you can burn out very easily. So if you have created this alter ego for yourself on behalf of your company and your community, that's something that you can leave behind at the end of the day, and it's still meeting the needs of your audience and still meeting the needs of your company. So that is something that you might want to experience with. Give yourself a new name, right? It doesn't mean you're not being authentic. It just means that that's your company name. And that's your persona that you take on when you're engaging with an online audience, so that you maybe feel like you're not giving away your entire self when you're online. And it might help diminish a lot of the burnout that we do see with community and customer service, because it is a really highly demanding, high pressure situation at times, depending on the industry and the brand. So I leave you here and see if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful and maybe gave some people some food for thought as far as community management is concerned, and how it's a little bit different than social media management. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
So you were looking for an employee to manage all of this.
Yes.
What title?
Sometimes it can be social and community manager, social media and community manager. It could be simple as that. Sometimes community manager is sort of that encompassing title and social media is a part. It could be brand ambassador management or customer experience manager, or in the online space. The title is, obviously you want to attract the right people, but I would focus more on the job responsibilities. And again, it's always great when social media managers can assume the role of community manager because they're the ones that know their audience best. They understand what content performs better. But it's also nice to have sort of a supporting person to also share that community management responsibility with. It's just so that you can sort of, say, am I going crazy, or is this person really, telling me what I think they are? And so you can respond and have people kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So I might, if you were hiring, I might think of this as a combined position, and then maybe over time sort of evolve it into 2 positions to sort of share that knowledge. Does that help? Okay. Yes.
Let me see. So I don't know what's the full question.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's fine. Work it through. We're good.
I heard this NPR thing, Hidden Brain.
Yeah.
And they talked about how a lot of times there's finding out stuff about your company or getting people to engage with your products. There's sometimes friction.
Yeah.
Obstacles that you can't see because it's your company. And
yeah,
this one they talked about like a place that you can design your own furniture. They had all these people designing their own furniture online, but they never actually your own couch.
Okay.
And they wouldn't buy.
Yes.
They have the money. They like doing it, and the whole point was that people didn't know what to do with their old couch.
Oh right. Yes.
So they'd be like, they would just stop.
Yeah.
And then there's other examples like that. And I just wondered how they did that, because they kind of brushed over that. And, wait a minute, how did they figure that out?
Yeah.
I guess they went and investigated those people somehow.
Right.
Engaged them. But is there a way, I guess you can send a survey to your clients, or is it something you can do on social media?
Yeah.
Appropriate to be like, what's wrong with us? Why don't you come in?
Right. No, this is a great question. And community management can definitely serve you in this instance. So for people online who might not have heard the question, how do you understand what's working in your organization and where the bottlenecks are that are thwarting customers from completing a transaction? And yeah, there are a lot of great examples of this. We probably see this a lot in the auto industry, right? When you can go online with BMW or Mini Cooper and you can customize your car and you can make it look like everything you want. And then maybe you get it the right way. And then you sort of go, do I really need this? Do I really want this? And you kind of run into that indecisive moment. So what is that thing that's keeping people, they're using your tools, they're engaging with you, but there's sort of something is keeping them from completing the transaction. Again, you can go to your community and say, hey, we're noticing this trend. What is it? Help us figure it out. Other things that you might try. So like, for instance, if you're Nordstrom and I'm your customer and I probably put a lot of things in my shopping cart or on my wish list, and then I go, oh, do I really need it? Do I really want it? Oh, I don't know. Or I get distracted and I leave it. And then I get an email from them and 2 hours later that says, hey, you forgot something. Your cart is still full. Don't you want it? And so again, I might use that opportunity to say, okay, if you were just creating a lookbook for yourself or a wish list for something you wanted to buy, tell us this. Give us that feedback so that we'll know that you're just looking. Versus that you have this intent to buy. And maybe it's that we create tiers, right? Instead of creating a wish list, now it's a want to buy list, or, something that's going to, I'm wanting to buy this if there is a discount for it, right? Or I put this in my cart and left it because I know you're going to send me a 10% coupon that's going to move me to do it. So there are things that you can sort of build into that workflow, that automation workflow, that you might be able to elicit some of that. The other thing that I would recommend is looking at the words that people are using. So I had a client once and we had a tech product that was a little bit higher price point than competitors. And there was a good reason for it. There was this tech added value that was we thought was the value add to this product. And what we noticed is that, especially on Pinterest, people were pinning our product, but they were adding it to boards like wish list or gift idea. It was very aspirational. And so we use that information to say, okay, maybe we need to offer a promotion so that we can attract this audience to take the plunge and buy this product. They're never going to do it at its current price point, but if we give them a coupon, if we give them a sales promotion, they could convert. The other thing you can do with that is do those surprise and delight moments in your community. Hey, thanks so much for adding this to your wish list. Here's 10% off, an order, right? So it shows them that you're listening. They're not trying to game the system. They did that independent of whether or not you were going to reply. And so then you created this sort of surprise and delight moment. A lot of times when there is a lot of engagement and then a failure to convert, it's do I really need this? So you have to market to them and say, yes, you absolutely do need this. Here are the benefits of this. This is why it's, your life will be so much better if you buy this. Or maybe it's a trust and authenticity, issue. You're a new company. How do I know that you're going to be around in a couple of years? So again, maybe it's a way for you to demonstrate your community partnerships, so you can reinforce that you're in it to win it, and you're not just going to, take your products and leave in a couple of years or merge or with another company. The other thing, you can do is, as far as, in your example, there are a lot of furniture companies now that are taking that sustainability to the next level. Okay, here's a couch that's going to last you longer than your current one, but we know you care about the environment and you don't want to create more trash. So you know what? We're going to take your couch and we're going to break it down and we're going to recycle it into a new couch for you. Or when you're done with this table that you just bought for us and you're going to move, call us. We'll take it. We'll buy it back from you. There's a great backpack company, and I'm totally blanking on the name, so I'll post the link after this. But there's a tag in their backpack, and it says, "Don't throw me away. Send me back to my owner." And they encourage you that when you are, downsizing or trying to spark your joy, and then that backpack is going to go to Goodwill or you can just go in the trash. They're saying, "No, send it back to me. We'll take it." So again, creating those moments where you are saying, your purchase doesn't end just because your involvement in my community doesn't end just because you bought something. It goes beyond that. And we want to be a part of your life for the long term. So this is how, and so you kind of set up those check marks or those process workflows to sort of demonstrate that to them. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please.
Okay. So I invite people into the space.
Yeah.
It's about this size. And because of COVID, there's been changes.
Sure.
Some people like those changes. Some people don't like those changes.
Okay.
And I guess you can speak to the different crowds in different ways.
Yeah.
But I guess I need to find out, how do I find out what people want to know?
Well, you can, if you have the freedom to sort of experiment on a low scale, you can just sort of say, okay, Tuesdays are reserved for people who want distance between each other. Wednesdays are for people who don't mind being together. See who shows up, and sort of test it out sort of organically that way. People love choices until they are paralyzed by indecision because of them, right? And so if you offer limited choices, then they're at least forced to decide between 3 options or 2 options, and they will choose the one that they actually want rather than the one that they think they should want, right? So there's a lot of human psychology that plays a role. We want to feel as if we have free will and that we are deciding what we want, but if you give us too many choices, we are just going to shut down and do nothing. And so, I think, if you wanted to sort of say, hey, we noticed that people are responding to these different changes and the impact of the last 2 years differently, and we want to, provide some customization to that. But, we're also a small business, so we can't customize it for everyone. So here are some options. Tell us what which one appeals to you. That way they feel like they're being heard. And you get a lot of great feedback. And then you can go back to them and say, okay, the people have spoken. We're going to do this most of the time, but we're also going to provide this as an option some of the time. And then, let them know that this isn't a done deal. People are going to get more comfortable as they emerge from their houses and they get vaccinated and whatnot. And so maybe in 3 months' time, we're going to switch it up again, right? And so we're going to respond to the, what the user wants, but in a very strategic, deliberate way that's not going to confuse them or overwhelm them. Yeah, thank you. Any questions from online?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
Would you recommend putting more focus on content creation or community management, especially if you have a limited time in order to?
Great question.
Social media management?
I think there's sort of a catch-22 in a way, which I know is not a very helpful answer. But the consistency of content is going to help promote your channel in the algorithms and get it in front of people. And then sort of once you've been able to build that foundation, you can then sort of pivot into more community management. I don't think it's a one or the other, but I think you definitely need content to cultivate a community. And then it can shift into be more of an online engagement, which is not necessarily focused on content creation in the long term. But I think it's really hard to have community without content. So it's sort of, maybe it's not a catch-22, maybe it's the chicken and the egg. So I would focus on content first, and then see what type of community emerges on behalf of that content, but using your content creation as a way to maybe ask questions or give clear call to actions so that you can see what types of behaviors your community is more apt to do. Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thanks for spending your Thursday morning with me. I always enjoy being here. And if you have any questions, feel free to follow up with me, but we'll post the slides and send any other resources that I may have mentioned during the presentation to you afterwards. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.